Good evening, how are we?
I'm very well, thanks. Was it easier to be Chris's teammate or Connor's manager?
Well, I don't think I managed Connor at all. I think I left.
Yeah.
So I would say it was easier to be Chris's teammate. By the way, he was a centre half when I joined, and he became a top striker. So fantastic it was.
We had an email from we wanted to talk to you for a while, but we had an email from a Coventry fan who the final paragraph of their email says everything about the job that you've done at Coventry. He says, and this is Kevin Unit, it's hard to overstate how low we once got, how close we were to extinction, and how unusual this brave new world under Sir Mark and his assistant Adi Vivash has been. There's a wonderful positive feeling around the club and the city, and long may it continue. This momentum has taken us an incredibly long way. Do you feel like you're in a brave new world, given how things have gone last season and this season?
No, I think I'm in a melee every day, and you're trying to make sense of it and work your way through things. But it's been, I think, really, you think back to, it's 7 years ago when I walked through the door for the second time, and it was in a mess. There's no doubt it was in a mess, and it needed some sorting out. And you've just got to try and wade your way through it, work your way through, and put the building blocks back in place to try and rebuild the club. And that's, fortunately, I've been through. Fortunately, unfortunately, that's been the story of my management career. I think my nickname was Red Adair for a spell, and it's been firefighting for quite a bit of my career. So coming into that situation was nothing new, and it just needed some working through. And thankfully, with help from a lot of people, not least from Adi Vivash and Dennis Lawrence, Aled Williams, the coaches. There's not a massive staff at Coventry, so and all the support staff and the people that have worked there. Dave Boddy, who's leaving this week. There's been a lot of people that have helped along the way, and it's been a tough 7 years, but a really enjoyable one, because we started to have a little bit of success as well along the way.
You talk about the experiences that you've had at other clubs as well. When you go from playing into coaching and you take over at, in inverted commas, troubled clubs, where more is needed than just coaching and setting up players and tactics, what prepares you for that?
Nothing. You can't. You can go on all the coaching courses and all the pro license, and nothing sets you up for it until you've experienced it. And I would never have thought I'd have gone into management early on in my career, and you just never know whether you're ready for it until you're thrust into it. And I think Alan Neil lost his job at Rotherham, and I was given the caretaker manager's job. I didn't have a clue how I was going to go about it, and it just sort of falls into place, and then you learn. You can only learn. You learn on the job, and it was difficult. Those days were really difficult, and I remember doing a podcast with Mark Clement a long time ago, and Graham Taylor was on it as well, and he said to me at that point, he said, "You won't think it now," he said, "but this will help you for the rest of your managerial career." And he was spot on. He was really spot on. So anything that you can, anything that you learn through those circumstances, and people weren't being paid, there were a lot of things that were wrong. PFA came in and they didn't help me. There was no way to help me. It was about the players, and the players all signed wage deferrals apart from one player, and that player was worth money. I had to go and speak to the administrator and try and get his help to try and sell him, so as we didn't lose him for nothing. It was really difficult. You just wade your way through a load of difficult situations, but it does set you up for what comes next. And walking into Coventry and the state that it was in at that point wasn't scary. It was just something that I had to get my teeth into and get on with. And thankfully, those building blocks were in place, and it's looking really, really positive.
Mark, good to see you. How difficult was it last season with the playoffs going again this season, going back in pre-season, where you'd had a brilliant season, you'd come so close? Did you find it difficult personally to get up for the start of the season? You know, what was your sort of going in, talking to the players again about going again?
Well, I mean, it's a really good question, but I think the turnover in players was big this year. So we lost 14, including Victor Gyökeres and Gus Hamer, and those two leaving left a big hole and big shoes to fill. But we brought 11 players in, so we were sort of net numbers down. But we've tried to spread the quality across the team and bring new players in. But when you do that, you start again. My biggest challenge has really been trying to, get people to understand the difficulty. And it's not just the supporters, by the way, it's everybody. It's new ownership. There is that to take into consideration and the shift in the mindset. There's new players coming in, the existing players who've just been to a playoff final, and now really they're starting again, and they realise that because we were so close to getting promoted, but we failed with a penalty kick. But, ultimately we're all starting again. It's going to take time to gel. We had 3 weeks to rebuild. We started again, and the players didn't come in until sort of the end of pre-season, so we didn't really get to work with them. So it's going to be a long process. And that's what happened, really. Even though we were playing really well, there were times we weren't together. We weren't a team yet. We were trying to sort of gel and make sure that everybody was trying to bond without the usual bonding sessions. Chris, remember our bonding sessions were slightly different, weren't they? So nowadays we try and do it in a different way. But they've been really good players. They've listened, they've learned, and they've been really good to this point. We've picked up some really good performances and results along the way, and we just got to try and pick our way through it. This league, I mean, Connor will tell you, this league I think is really, really tough this year, and for us that have been in it for a few years, this is the hardest it's been, I think, for a number of years.
Connor?
Yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree with everything. Mark, we've obviously had 2 real tough games as well this season. I think we played Coventry first game of the season and a couple of weeks ago as well, so we've had 2 real tough games, but I completely agree. And do you think it's the toughest it's been? Because I think for us, I think it's in terms of we had a lot of lads who hadn't played in the Championship at the start of the year, but quickly realised kind of how tough the league was from that first game and from the first few games as well, to be honest.
I think it's definitely one of the toughest I've experienced, certainly as a manager. I think that when you come into it having not played in it, and that was the other thing as well, when you bring players in who either have played abroad, haven't experienced the Championship, intensity in training and the frequency of the games, it catches up with people along the way, and it takes that time to get that robustness into you anyway. So people pick up injuries, or they have loss of form. They get bogged down with information, and you've got to try and give them some time to sort of decompress as well from time to time. So there's just a balance to be had in terms of your training, and I know a lot of managers have come in certainly from abroad, and they'll be in double sessions, and they'll be doing a lot of work on the training ground. Some come in on the day of a game and they'll do set plays and they'll run throughs and things like that. And I just think that over time, over the period, over the season, I don't think it helps much. I think in fact it probably means you get overloaded, and you just try and give them the time and get time off in between the games, because the games are taken fast. Training becomes less frequent. That's been good for us because we're developing the training ground. So we've not had, before this season, we've not really had 2 pitches to play. And it was the indigenous soil from the 60s when Jimmy Hill got the training ground. There was no drainage in there or anything like that. We've been working miracles, putting teams out on the pitch. Honestly, it's been incredible. But thankfully now it's starting to look like a proper football club.
I was going to ask how you. The fact that you've been in the same EFL job for 7 years is basically unheard of. That isn't really meant to happen in the EFL. And I was going to ask you how much of a mindset shift you have to go from kind of stints of 2 years here and there to being kind of a long-term manager shaping a club in your own vision. But it sounds a little bit like there's so much change every year that you must always feel a little bit like you're starting from scratch. Which isn't always good. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not.
I think if you look back over the time I've been in charge, there's been probably 5 teams that have built, and there's been a lot of really good players and everybody through those divisions, because obviously we dropped into League Two, but everybody that's been in has improved. They've helped improve us, and obviously we've improved season on season. So they take a lot of credit, and nobody forgets that. I certainly don't forget that, and the contribution that they've made, staff members as well. There's a lot of work gone into this, and the fact that the new owner came in just over a year ago now, he's started to shift the mentality and wants us to start thinking that we're a team that should be competing each year. And really, financially, we shouldn't, but we've shifted, and that's what happens. When I came into this league with Coventry, we were sort of really the poor relations. We were trying to get players and borrow players and try and keep us and sustain us in the division for a period. And thankfully, we've had some really good players. We've signed Victor Gyökeres, who cost us about £1 million. Gustavo Hamer, about £1 million. And the return on those has helped us rebuild. And whilst we were a penalty kick away from getting into the Premier League, we were still a way away. And then when you lose those 2 players and the others, and then you rebuild it, it's going to take a little bit of time. But I'm pleased with the way things have gone. The mindset can shift. You can start to look at where we can eventually get to, but it's got to be incremental. It's been incremental all the time for us. We can't just go out and spend £20 million or even 6, 7, 8 million pounds. We've done one deal that took us over or gave us the most expensive player the club signed this year with Haji Wright. But we do it and try and spread it so as we can get as much quality in as we possibly can do, because we've still got to keep the operating costs below the threshold.
I mean, going to Sporting Lisbon's a fantastic move, but and maybe they did come in, I don't know, but were you surprised Premier League clubs didn't come in for Gyökeres?
They did.
Right.
They did. He'd made his decision that he was wanting to go. I think really within hours of the final whistle at Wembley, I knew that both of them were leaving.
Right.
It was the talk of the bus on the way back, or even the after-match get-together that we had. But that was then, you're looking at what you're going to do to try and improve it, to try and replace them. And the reality is, you can't replace players like that because they're one-offs. You've got to try and do it a different way. And I've got Dean Austin working with me and works closely with me in terms of the recruitment, and he's doing a fantastic job because he came into that only 12 months ago as well. The recruitment team left, went to Blackpool. So Dean came in just alongside the new owner, and that's been a really good appointment. And he's working his socks off to help bring players in to try and take us forward.
This may be a stupid question to finish on, and therefore Chris will huff and puff and raise his eyebrows at me and frown at the same time. But is there something more satisfying about a job like this, where you have to keep rebuilding and you have the challenges and you are trying to sort the training ground, than if everything was on a plate for you when you joined the club?
There is no alternative for me, I'm afraid, Mark. There's absolutely no alternative. But I think that if you can get your teeth stuck into a job and you can see it moving forward and you can see a pathway, you can see a clear way of doing that, then you can remain enthused. The biggest thing for me is the reconnection between the support and the players, because there were pigs' heads coming onto the pitch during games, and there was a lot of toxicity around. That's changed, and I think that's probably one of the biggest achievements, is reuniting a fan base with its players.
Mark, thank you very much.
Can I just ask a quick one? Mark, is it an annoyance to you? I mean, you've had an excellent managerial career that you haven't had a chance to manage up. I know you're doing well at Coventry now, but I mean, it seems odd from the outside, people getting opportunities at Premier League level, and yet what more do you have to do?
I'm really happy. I think early on in my career, certainly when I was at Rotherham, I left and Barnsley came calling. We were top of the league. We'd worked through that 17-point deduction. We had a huge 17-point deduction. The saving grace for me that season was, we'd lost the stadium, so we were playing at Don Valley Stadium. We lost the training ground, so I'd gone to Keepmoat, and Keepmoat had just opened at Doncaster. So we got the training ground there at half the price that the training ground was. The chairman had told me we were probably 99.9% staying at Millmoor, and I'd gone on a pro licence course. The first day I'd got a phone call to say we'd left. So I said, right, you better go and speak to Keepmoat and do that deal then. So we'd done that, moved that forward, 17-point deduction. And like I say, Eddie Howe at Bournemouth had a 17-point deduction, and Mick Harford was in charge at Luton Town, and they had 30 points. We would have finished, I think, I'm right in saying we'd have finished 5th, but I think in reality we finished 10th. So I left to go to Barnsley. So I've done pretty well in the jobs I've done, but I'm really settled and happy. I don't look around at anything else. It's not a problem to me. I think the job at Coventry is a really big one and still remains that way. And we're really driving to try and get us into the Premier League. I've got good people with me. I've got a really good coach. I don't know whether you came across him, Chris. Adi Vivash, he was 10 years at Chelsea. It was after you, but 10 years at Chelsea in the academy and was a fantastic developer of talent. Dennis Lawrence, who's been manager at Trinidad and Tobago and worked with Roberto Martinez in a number of roles. He's with me as well, and they do a fantastic job. So you can never do it on your own. And I'm thankful that I've got that expertise around me as well.
And when you came on to score those 2 goals for Norwich at Arsenal, you came on for...
I've no idea. You tell me, Chris.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was.
He ruined my season because I got the nod. First game of the season, Arsenal Highbury. We were 2 down at half time. I get the hook at the start of the second half. Mark comes on, scores a brilliant chip. Norwich win 4-2, and I got told to play centre half for most of the season.
Mark, congratulations on the job you're doing. Thanks very much for giving us your time this evening. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Nice to see you all.
Nice to see you. Mark Robins, Coventry manager on
he could
the
finish
Monday.